What's going on, everybody? So here's an interesting one for you. How often do you see a Beretta, but it doesn't look like the Beretta that you're used to? Well, what I've got here is I've got myself a Beretta M1 Garand. It's not something you see so often out there. So what I want to do is I just want to go over this gun. This is going to be more of like an overview, tabletop, quick look kind of thing. I just want to go over this beauty, talk about it a little bit, and just show you some things and clear up a couple things. These rifles are going to be hitting the market very soon. Shortly after the date of this video, you're going to start seeing these popping up here in Canada. So let's get right into it. So what we're looking at is, as I said, it's a Beretta M1 Garand. Now, I'm going to be real with you. For all you purists out there, you probably see by the ammunition on the table that this is not your standard 30-06 M1 Garand. This one is actually chambered in .308 Winchester or 7.62 NATO. I understand that's blasphemy. I understand I'm going to hell for buying this gun and even putting it on the table. But I thought this would be a really neat thing to show. So most importantly, anytime you're going into checking on a firearm, we're going to want to make sure it's clear. So let's do that now. Sorry, I had to get that out of the way. So what we've got is a .308 M1. So you're probably wondering, like, why are these popping up all of a sudden? How are people seeing these? So what these rifles are, actually, a certain retailer who shall not be named, because of the simple fact it's under new ownership and I don't want to degrade them any, these guns were actually originally a bad batch of guns. So there was a retailer that was selling these as what we call genuine T2 Garands. So, like Beretta, 308 caliber Garands. Now, the unfortunate nature is when these guns were being sold, they were actually, not safe to say the least. They were dangerous rifles. There was actually, I believe it was a German gunsmith who was assembling them, and he was gloating about how he was basically building one rifle every 12 minutes. Now, that's impressive, like to set the barrel, check the headspace, do all that in 12 minutes. The problem was, like, that sounds great on paper. That's not actually what happened. Is the guns themselves were improperly headspaced, they were improperly timed. The barrels on certain ones were actually only hand tightened, which means you could have literally grabbed the barrel and pulled it right off the receiver. For those of us who are not Garand aficionados, they're not supposed to do that. And basically, the guns were dangerous. There was cases of them like being genuinely unsafe to the point where they could explode and very seriously harm the user. One of the biggest issues was the bolts. So what was happening is the bolts weren't properly sized and headspaced. What they did was they welded the locking lugs and then just ground the metal down as much as they needed to headspace the gun properly. The problem with that is weld does not hold up as well as heat-treated metal. So the problem was the guns were unsafe. They were using weakened locking lugs to hold the guns together, on top of the fact they were overgassed. So you're probably wondering, well, why would I buy one of these rifles? Why would I buy one of these dangerous guns? Well, they've been rebuilt. So these Garands, while they are the same Garands that originally had the issues before, they've been fixed. The barrels are properly set, the bolts are made of the proper metallurgy, they're not ground down. They're proper .308 bolts and properly set barrels, and they're not overgassed this time around. They're a lot better. When I picked this rifle up from the gun store that I work at, the gunsmith, I had him go over it, give it a good look-see, check it over, and he was very happy with the gun, and quote, said, "This is a very beautiful Beretta M1." So, I'm gonna take the camera off the tripod here, and we're just gonna, I'm gonna give you some close-ups, nice and close of the gun. Full disclosure, it is dirty. I got a little greedy. I fired 80 rounds this morning out of it, just because I had to. But yeah, so the gun's gonna be a little dirty on the inside, but I'm gonna go over the rifle nice up close and just show you. It's not overly clean, but this one, so 3 of them showed up at my store. There will be a bunch more coming out. This was the nicest of the 3, and I did inhuman, despicable things to get the owner to let me buy it, but I mean, it is what it is. And that's another thing too, is people always say working at a gun store and, you know, doing a little bit of YouTube, it must be so nice that the owner gives me all this stuff for free so I can review it. I didn't get it for free. He has this thing called the Book of Souls where he owns my life, lets me buy these things at a decent discount, but I'm not allowed to leave. It was kind of one of those, it's like, hey, if you don't pay me back, I know where you work. And if you really don't pay me back, I know where you don't work. So just bear that in mind. Working at a gun store is actually quite expensive. The stock does have a couple little nicks and dings. I mean, they were shipped in a cardboard box altogether, but overall, I think the gun actually looks really good. Just trying to work with the lighting here. I gotta change the lights above us because these blue lights looks like the flash is on my camera. I haven't gotten all the grease off of it yet. Now, something interesting I want to point out is with this rifle, or with the 308 Garands. Oh! Oh! I almost had a heart attack there. Whew! That was scary. So with the 308 Garands, there's a lot of people say, like, you know, it's kind of weird that they would build one genuine 308. Well, fun fact, they're actually, it's still a 30-06 receiver. So, like, everything in here is parts for a 30-06. There's one tiny exception, and those of you Garand purists are going to see it right away, is right there. That little piece right there. So basically what that's for is that stops me from putting a 30-06 clip into the gun. And that sounds so weird with me saying clip, because you usually say magazine, but this is one of those genuine times where you actually do say clip. So that little device right there stops me from putting in a 30-06. Now, an interesting thing to note is the gun itself actually, in terms of function, doesn't need that piece. It will function if you put 308 clips in there without that. It's just, it's more or less a safety feature from the research that I've done. I'm sure if I'm wrong, somebody will hop up in the comments there and tell me, like, oh, hey, you're wrong. It's actually needed for feeding. But to the research that I've done, that is meant for stopping me from putting a 30-06 clip in the gun. So shooting it today, I fired 80 rounds out of it, just to see. What I fired was all this stuff right here, the Federal XM80. 7.62x51, 149 grain FMJ. The gun shot great, very accurate, surprised me actually. I didn't even have to sight the gun in, it was pre-sighted. I did have one malfunction. Now, I'm thinking it was probably me because the way it was on the last round, it looked like the gun tried to eject the clip, but there was still a round kind of wedged right there. Now, when I looked at it, I knew something was up because when I loaded that clip at the start of that session there, it felt weird. It didn't feel normal when I loaded it like it did the other times. So I'm thinking I probably somehow loaded the clip wrong and caused the gun to jam up on the last round, but I just figured I'd mention that for the sake of honesty. Grease-wise, I've been using the G96 grease for those of you who care. Seems to be working really well. Got a 92X full size there just to keep up with the Beretta theme. But yeah, that's kind of just, I just wanted to go over the gun. Let you know that there are some genuine kick-ass 308 Garands coming out. Not really genuine, but there's some kick-ass 308 M1 Garands coming. MSRP, a lot of people have asked me that when they saw me shooting this today. I don't know, full disclosure. Realistically, guys, you're probably going to be looking at about the $2,000 mark for these bad boys. They've been all rebuilt, they're beautiful setup. Functional rifles, but yeah, you're like, here in Canada, you're looking at about $2,000 for one of these, so they are not cheap. But for someone like myself, I just had to have it. Anywho, yeah, any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Thanks everybody for watching, and I will see y'all next time.